Look out any window in America, and you are looking at a battlefield. Nobody is fighting anymore. The bird on the wire, the tree on the median, the fish in the pond, the beetle on the rose, the worm turning over your garden soil. You were taught these were the scenery. They are the invasion. And most of it we simply stopped trying to stop. We know how to go to war with an invader. When the Burmese python turned up in the Everglades, there were bounties and hunting seasons. When the spotted lanternfly crossed into Pennsylvania, whole states told you to crush it on sight. Those are the invasions we fight, because they are new and because fear is loudest when a thing is unfamiliar. This list is about the opposite. It is about the species that beat us so long ago that we quit. The ones that have been here for a century or two or 10,000 years until they stopped looking like an invasion and started looking like home. Today, we are counting down 9 invasive species that live in nearly every American state and that almost nobody is seriously trying to stop. Ranked not by the damage they do on paper, but by how completely we have made our peace with them. From the ones we merely grumble about, to the one at number 1 that most people do not even know is an invader at all. Some of these you feed, some you planted yourself, and the last one is under your feet right now. Before we start, if you like the kind of thing that makes you look twice at ground you thought you knew, take a second to subscribe. It genuinely helps the channel. And I want to know one thing while you are here. Which state are you watching from? Drop it in the comments. Let's get into the list. Number 9, the house sparrow. We begin with a bird so ordinary you have edited it out of your vision entirely. The little brown bird hopping under the tables at the gas station, at the fast food patio, in the parking lot of every grocery store in the country. That is the house sparrow, and it is not from here. It was carried over from England and released in Brooklyn around 1850, roughly 8 pairs at first, on the well-meaning theory that it would eat the insects chewing up the city's shade trees. It did not do that. What it did was breed and spread until within about 50 years, it had reached the Rocky Mountains and become one of the most abundant birds on the continent. Here is the part we have agreed to forget. The house sparrow is not a gentle guest. It is a cavity nester that wants the same holes and boxes our native birds need, and it takes them by force. It will enter a bluebird's nest box, destroy the eggs, kill the nestlings, and has been documented killing the adult female on the nest. Tree swallows and purple martins lose the same fight. For a while, Americans understood this. In the 1880s, there were bounties on sparrows, and towns formed extermination societies and held shooting contests. Then everyone got tired and stopped, and the sparrow won by simply outlasting our attention. Because it is non-native, it has no federal protection to this day. You are legally allowed to control it. Almost no one does. Number 9 is the invader we once put a price on, then decided to feed. Number 8, the common carp. If the sparrow slipped in by accident, the common carp was carried in on our shoulders like a prize. In the 1800s, native fish were being overharvested, and a hungry, growing country wanted a hardy fish that could feed people anywhere. So the United States Fish Commission imported carp from Europe, and did not just release them, it shipped them across the country and stocked them on purpose, pond by pond, state by state. California was one of the first places to line up and ask for a shipment. We wanted this fish. Today, the common carp lives in 48 states, everywhere except Alaska, and the same qualities that made it seem like a gift are exactly the problem. It is a bottom feeder that roots through the mud like an underwater plow, ripping up rooted plants and stirring the sediment until the water turns brown and cloudy. That murk chokes out the aquatic plants that ducks and native fish depend on, and the churning releases phosphorus that feeds algae blooms. It can flip a clear, healthy, shallow lake into a turbid green one. Wildlife agencies call it one of the most damaging aquatic invasive species we have. And our response, more than a century on, is mostly to shrug and fish around it. Number 8 is the invasion we mailed to ourselves. Number 7, the Japanese beetle. Somewhere around the 4th of July, if you live east of the Great Plains, they arrive. Metallic green bodies with coppery wings clustered on the roses, on the grapevines, on the linden leaves, chewing everything down to lace until only the veins are left. The Japanese beetle first showed up in 1916 in a New Jersey nursery, almost certainly having ridden over in the soil around imported plants, and it has been marching outward ever since. What makes it so hard to stop is its appetite. The adult beetle will feed on more than 300 kinds of plants, from ornamental shrubs to fruit trees to farm crops, and the grubs live underground, eating the roots of your lawn. It is now established in roughly 41 states, most of the country east of and just past the Mississippi. Out west, aggressive quarantines and a drier climate have held it back, and that is the tell. Where we throw the full weight of the state at it early, we can slow it. In the east, where it has been dug in for 100 years, eradication has flatly failed. So millions of homeowners fight it privately, with bag traps and sprays, one backyard at a time, and lose a little more of the garden every July. Number 7 is the invasion we have downgraded from emergency to season. Number 6, the calorie pear. This is the one you may have paid for. In spring, whole suburban streets go white with blossom. Neat, lollipop-shaped trees planted in yards and medians and shopping center islands from Connecticut to Texas. That is the calorie pear, usually sold as the Bradford pear, and for decades it was the perfect landscaping tree. Fast, tidy, gorgeous in April, flaming red in fall. The United States Department of Agriculture brought it over from Asia in the early 1900s, and by 1961 the Bradford was a nursery bestseller. It was supposed to be sterile. It was not. Different cultivars planted near each other cross-pollinate, and now they produce fruit, and birds carry the seeds out of the neighborhood and into the countryside. The escaped trees grow back thorny and mean, forming dense thickets along roadsides, fields, and forest edges, crowding out native plants that actual native wildlife can use. They have naturalized across more than 150,000 square miles of the eastern United States, and the response has been almost comically slow. Only in the last few years have a handful of states, Ohio, South Carolina, Pennsylvania, Georgia, with Illinois and others phasing in, moved to ban the sale. Even then, no one is required to remove the trees already in the ground. The bans are late, they are partial, and they cover the cash register only. Number 6 is the invasion we are still planting on purpose. Number 5, the brown marmorated stink bug. We are at the halfway point. If you are still with me, you are clearly someone who actually wants to know what shares this country with us, so if you haven't yet, this is the moment to subscribe, because the animals from here up are the ones we have surrendered to most completely. And number 5 is the one that has come indoors. The brown marmorated stink bug is native to East Asia and slipped into the country as a stowaway in shipping crates first noticed around Allentown, Pennsylvania in the mid-1990s. In roughly 25 years, it has spread to around 47 states. It feeds on well over 100 kinds of plants, and in 2010, it hit the mid-Atlantic hard enough that some fruit and vegetable growers reported nearly total losses that season. But the reason you know it is the shield-shaped bug that pours into your house every fall, looking for a warm place to wait out winter, releasing that sour cilantro smell when you crush it. And here is the surrender. The official advice for the invasion inside your walls is essentially to seal your windows, vacuum them up, and not bother spraying, because the spray will not stop the next wave. Scientists are studying a tiny parasitic wasp as a long shot at control. For now, we mostly just live with them. Number 5 is the invasion that moved in and pays no rent. Number 4, kudzu. You have seen the photographs. Green vines swallowing whole hillsides, drowning trees and barns, and telephone poles under one continuous blanket. Kudzu, the vine that ate the South. It came from Asia, shown off as an ornamental at the 1876 Centennial Exposition in Philadelphia, and then in the 1930s and 40s, the federal government did something we would never do to an enemy. It recruited it. To fight Dust Bowl erosion, the Soil Conservation Service grew tens of millions of kudzu seedlings and paid farmers as much as $8 an acre to plant them. Now, here is the smarter, stranger truth, because this is where the legend and the facts part ways. Kudzu never actually ate the South. Careful Forest Service sampling puts it at around 227,000 acres, real, but a rounding error next to the millions of acres people imagine, and far smaller than quieter invaders like Chinese privet that no one makes documentaries about. So kudzu earns its spot not because it is unstoppable, but because of what we did with it. We invited it, subsidized it, mythologized it, and then, when the panic wore off, we simply stopped. We did not defeat it. We made it scenery. Today, the vine sits along the interstate, and people slow down to photograph the thing their grandparents were paid to plant. Number 4 is the invasion we hired, then framed and hung on the wall. Number 3, the European starling. Now the famous one, though not for the reason you have been told. Look up at a winter dusk and watch a murmuration, tens of thousands of black birds folding and turning across the sky like a single organism. Those are European starlings, and every one of them descends from a release of about 100 birds in New York's Central Park in 1890 and 1891, set loose by a man named Eugene Schieffelin. The story you have heard is that Schieffelin was a Shakespeare fanatic who wanted America to have every bird the bard ever mentioned. It is a lovely story, and modern historians think it is mostly a myth, one that only got attached to him decades later. What is not a myth is the arithmetic. From that 100 birds, the population exploded to an estimated 200 million, spread across all 50 states from Alaska to Mexico. Along the way, starlings became one of the most destructive birds on the continent, muscling native woodpeckers and bluebirds out of their nest holes, causing something like $1 billion in agricultural damage a year, and forming flocks so vast they have brought down aircraft. They are officially invasive and unprotected. Trapping programs exist. They barely dent the number. Number 3 is the largest uncontrolled bird invasion in the hemisphere, dressed up as a charming story about a man who loved poetry. Number 2, the free-roaming cat. Now we come to the one that breaks people. Everyone accepts that there are invasive predators out there somewhere. What almost nobody in America is willing to say out loud is that the single most destructive introduced predator on the continent is curled up asleep on the couch, or being fed at the end of the driveway. In 2013, scientists at the Smithsonian and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service ran the numbers on free-ranging domestic cats and found that they kill somewhere between 1.3 billion and 4 billion birds every year in the lower 48, with a best estimate around 2.4 billion plus billions more small mammals. It is the single largest human-caused source of direct bird deaths in the country, larger than windows, larger than cars, larger than pesticides. The domestic cat is listed among the 100 worst invasive species on Earth and has helped push dozens of species to extinction. The majority of the killing is done not by owned pets, but by the enormous population of unowned and feral cats we tolerate at the edges of every town. And this is where the denial turns total, because the animal is beloved. Efforts to actually reduce their numbers collide instantly with the fact that they are cats, and the politics are radioactive. One of the lead researchers put it plainly: it might be easier to stop climate change than to stop the cats. Number 2 is the apex invasive predator we name, feed, and refuse to see. Number 1, the earthworm. And the most successful invader in your state is one you were taught to love. It is the earthworm, and to understand why it belongs at number 1, you have to go back past the founding, past the settlers, past 10,000 years. Across the entire northern half of North America, the glaciers of the last ice age scraped the ground clean and wiped out the native earthworms. The forests that grew back over the next several thousand years, the hardwoods of the Northeast, the Midwest, the Great Lakes, evolved with no earthworms at all. They are built on a thick, spongy layer of slowly rotting leaves called duff. And that duff is the nursery for the wildflowers, the ferns, the tree seedlings, the salamanders, and the ground-nesting birds. Almost every earthworm you have ever seen in that soil, the nightcrawler on the sidewalk, the wrigglers in your garden, is a European or Asian species we brought here, and they are found in something like 97% of studied soils on the continent. They spread, more than anything, on the end of a fishing hook, dumped by the handful at the water's edge. And what they do is eat the forest floor. They devour the duff faster than it can rebuild, stripping away the layer everything else depends on, and the seedlings and wildflowers and the small animals that lived in it decline behind them. The newest wave is worse. The Asian jumping worms that thrash like snakes, reproduce without mating, grow twice as fast, and turn rich soil into loose grounds that look like spilled coffee. There is essentially no coordinated effort to stop any of it. There is no bounty, no quarantine you have heard of, no crush on-site campaign. There is a garden section that sells them, a bait shop that recommends them, and a whole culture that calls them a sign of healthy dirt. Every other species on this list at least announces itself. This one is praised while it works. Number 1 is the invasion we mistook for a friend, quietly rewriting the ground under half a continent while we thanked it for the favor. So here is what this list is really about. Not panic. Panic is easy, and it is exactly what we spend on the pythons and the lanternflies, the new and dramatic invaders that let us feel like we are fighting. This is the quieter thing. It is the gap between the invasions we mobilize against and the ones we have simply agreed to live with because they got here first and stayed longest. The sparrow is still under the table at the gas station. The carp is still plowing the bottom of the pond. The starling is still turning in the winter sky in a shape you were taught was beautiful. And under the leaf litter of a forest that spent 10,000 years learning to live without them, the worms are still eating the floor out from under the wildflowers, one cast at a time. None of them hid. That is the whole point. The invasions that won are not the ones that snuck past us. They are the ones we looked at every single day for 100 years and decided to call home.